Hello, I'm Karen Long, President and founder of Streamline Government Contracts. Streamline is an outsourced solution for contract management for small to medium-sized companies. Streamline helps companies reduce risks, increase profits, and enhance their reputation by negotiating teaming agreements, preparing estimates of completion, and speaking to contracting officers in their own language. We are the proud organizers of Government Contractor Chats and happy you're able to join us today. And now I'm going to turn it over to Lindsay.
Thank you, Karen. Hello, everyone. I am Lindsay Riegelsberger, Operations Manager and Marketing Specialist for Streamline Government Contracts. I'm going to introduce our guest speaker now. Please mute yourselves and go off camera until the Q&A portion. David Stearman has been helping companies succeed and thrive in the highly competitive GovCon market for 25 years. His company, Proposal Strategy and Development Consulting, LLC, provides full spectrum proposal support, including direct and fractional support, training, coaching, and mentoring, capacity building, and consulting services to small and mid-sized GovCons operating across the federal ecosystem. Without further ado, David Stearman.
Thank you, Lindsay. So before I start, I'll start with the disclaimer, which is that I am not an AI expert. I don't claim to be. I am aware of AI, but I'm not embedded in AI in a way that other people are. However, I've been following this for a while, and obviously, since ChatGPT hit the universe 14 months ago, it's become a big deal in our industry. And so I want to offer my perspectives as best I can. So with that, I'll start with where it starts, which is Alan Turing. A lot of everything about computers and IT starts with Alan Turing. Some of you may know that he was a very, very widely known mathematician, logistician, etc. He was a code breaker during World War II for the British government. He helped them crack the Nazi codes and help them win the war. And he was one of the first to really talk about artificial intelligence. He's kind of at the forefront of the whole notion of artificial intelligence. So this is where it starts. And that was going back 80, 90 years in some cases to some of his first thoughts about the subject. So this is not new, and yet it's very new. So AI, what do we mean? This is a definition from Wikipedia. Not that Wikipedia is an altogether authoritative source for anything, but for our purposes, this is good enough. This is what we mean when we talk about artificial intelligence. Science fiction has often been at the forefront of things like this, and it certainly has been in the popular culture. This is one vision of artificial intelligence in popular culture. This is a still from the movie 2001: A Space Odyssey from back in the 80s. And in this movie, one of the characters is the computer on board the ship, which is a sentient computer, an AI, if you will, and it becomes a malevolent entity and starts killing off all of the astronauts one by one. So this is, kind of the nightmare scenario of AI. At the same time, we also have this very benevolent image of AI. This is Commander Data from Star Trek: The Next Generation, a sentient robot, essentially, and a form of artificial intelligence who is a major character on the show and is one of the good guys. So we've seen both of these kinds of images of AI. We've seen it in other ways, in other contexts too, in popular culture, particularly in movies. If you think of the Terminator series or the Matrix series, same kind of concept. When we break into the concept, the general rubric of artificial intelligence down, these are four elements that are commonly thought of as different kinds of AI or different elements of AI, and these can overlap and be combined into different AI applications and tools. So, but these are the basic kinds of things that we think about when we talk about AI. And these are certainly the kinds of things that apply in the context of today's discussion. Again, from Wikipedia on the subject of what is AI, GPTs, that's really the thing that's big now since ChatGPT came online in November of 2022. Not that long ago, and yet it's already seems like it's been a long time. And it's had a huge impact. So this is a description of what a GPT is. I'm not going to read this to you because you can read and you'll be able to have this after this presentation. This is what we're talking about really when we're talking about AI in the proposal context. In particular, we're talking about ChatGPT, which was developed by a company called OpenAI. These are what's called large language models. And they incorporate aspects of machine learning, neural networks, natural language programs. And essentially, they're collecting and synthesizing large data sets of information, which is not a new concept really, but they're doing it in a different way. One of the key aspects of LLMs is the use of prompts, which are kind of what starts the whole thing rolling, okay? And in fact, there's a whole new field that has sprung up just in the last year called prompt engineering. You know, we've had civil engineering for hundreds of years. We've had electrical engineering. We've had computer engineering. Now we have prompt engineering. And it is a field that is specifically focused on how to generate prompts for AIs that will give us what we want. So what does this look like? It's basically a cyclical process. One of the key elements of LLMs like ChatGPT is that they learn. And this is the artificial intelligence part of it really is the learning part of it. So it starts with a prompt and it's just an instruction to the tool from the user that's designed to elicit a specific response or outcome. It uses that prompt to generate the output based on whatever data it has access to. And then the user provides feedback about the output. Was it good? Was it bad? You know, et cetera. What can be different about it? How can it be better? And this becomes an iterative loop in which through that feedback, the AI is learning how to get better and better in responding to specific kinds of prompts. And so that's the key element of LLMs like ChatGPT that sets it apart from other types of automated processes. There certainly have been for a long time IT technology tools that can, you know, sort of scrub data from somewhere and replicate it in a different form. That's not new, but what LLMs do is they learn how to do it better and better. Okay, and it's this iterative loop, and it just you can keep iterating with new prompts and new prompts and new prompts until you get the output you want. So here's what AI can do. It can help you increase your throughput because it does things much more quickly than a human does. So if we're talking about gathering information and synthesizing it into a new form, that a task can take a human hours or even days. ChatGPT can essentially do that instantaneously. It also enables us to accomplish mundane and tedious tasks with minimal human effort, meaning we can free up humans to do the things that they do better than these tools and that have high value, and they don't have to spend time doing the humdrum, drab, sort of what I would call administrivia. It can help reduce labor costs because you can have an AI tool like ChatGPT do certain things that you had been having human beings do. So it can reduce your labor costs. And there's obviously a double-edged sword there. And it certainly helps us meet that goal. We've all heard this catchphrase, doing more with less. An AI tool can really help with that. So there's a lot of really incredible possibilities and potential with AI. The next thing is what we call use cases. Again, this is a jargon term that has been in use in business for a long time, but is now applied in a different way and with different specific meanings in the AI context. Like any new technology, there's always jargon that goes with it. A use case is just a specific thing that you think AI might be useful for. That's really all it means. But we talk about this a lot, and we can get tripped up if we're not clear that that's what we're talking about. So I wanted to put that definition out there. So here are some common use cases for AI in proposals, which is, what I do. It can help you do bid, no bid decisions. It can do a quick gap analysis. It can generate a compliance matrix, and it can produce content. So these are all very typical use cases that have already been not only proposed, but actually implemented to do proposal work in the GovCon space. This is not an exhaustive list. There are plenty of other use cases that we could talk about, but this gives you a flavor of the possibilities and potential for AI in the proposal space. So let's get a little more specific. Think about compliance. So you can use a prompt like this to generate the compliance matrix that is the bane of every proposal manager's existence, mine included. It's just tedious, it's time consuming, and an AI can do that essentially instantaneously with an adequate prompt. I'm not suggesting that this is the perfect prompt. This is just an example of what a prompt looks like. It might well be necessary to iterate and get better prompts that will get us better outcomes. But this is one common use case where AI has great potential. Past performance is another. Typically, when you're responding to an RFP and it includes a requirement for past performance, somebody's got to go into your database of past performances and contract information and gather all the information, decide which contracts are the most relevant to the bid you're pursuing, and then format it all into a template that matches the requirements in the RFP. It's tedious and time consuming, and it's no fun. And the AI doesn't need it to be fun. The AI just does it. So this is another great use case for AI in proposals. And along those same lines, resumes, key personnel resumes. Again, another common element of RFPs and proposals, and another tedious and time-consuming thing to do that can take a human being hours or days to do. And that AI can at least take a first pass at that pretty damn quickly. And finally, for this discussion anyway, not the last use case, but people are using AI to generate a draft technical approach. And this is probably the most ambitious of the use cases I've mentioned here, in that a technical approach is not just gathering information and putting it into a different format. It really is about tailoring the information to the requirements, tailoring the information to what matters to the customer, and so forth. And this is where your subject matter experts typically play a role, where your proposal writers typically play a role. These folks have expertise in doing this kind of task, and they understand nuances and so on and so forth. But people are already using AI to generate that first draft. Again, it's just quicker, right? Because somebody, if a human being is doing this, it's going to take them time. And the AI can do it, again, and I keep saying this, essentially instantaneously. And so you can quickly get a first draft, and that means you may then turn that over to your human SMEs and writers and have them massage it to where it's ready to submit. But you can certainly have the AI generate an initial draft, okay? So these are some typical use cases in the proposal world, and all of these have significant potential to be very beneficial to what you're trying to do. The flip side of the coin, AI does have limitations. Like any kind of technology similar to this, garbage in, garbage out, right? if it has bad information to start with, it's going to have a bad output. Okay. And that could be a poorly developed prompt. Like you saw the prompts that I had on the preceding slides. Some of them may not have been very good. Honestly, those were things that I made up on the spur of the moment for the purpose of this presentation. I did a little thinking about them, but again, I'm not an expert. I'm not a prompt engineer. And so I have no doubt that they could be improved. So poor prompts are potentially garbage in. Similarly, if the data set that the AI has access to is limited, then the output is obviously going to be limited as well, right? So that's one limitation. It's just going to constrain how well the AI performs. Another limitation is that AI is not sentient, right? It's not HAL, it's not Commander Data. We're calling it AI, and that is sort of a fuzzy term still, and people are still debating what it really means and what even the term intelligence means. People are talking about IQ tests for decades, whether they really measure anything. So the same thing is true here. AI does not have the same kind of sentient thought process that you and I have, right? And it often misses things that are more nuanced. The things like what matters to the customer, the issues, hot buttons, and pain points, right? That comes because you've developed a relationship with the customer, or you've spoken with the customer, you've listened to what they talk about and what their concerns are. And so that's a more nuanced thing that may or may not be accessible to the AI. It also may not understand what your own strengths and discriminators are, because at the beginning, it's never met you before. And just like any new acquaintance, they don't know everything about you yet. Now, over time, that can become better and better for the AI. They will have a better and better sense of what you do and what you do well and where you add value. But all of that is dependent on what you're giving them access to and how often they're iterating to learn more and more. Similarly with your competitors. A pretty significant limitation is the presence of inherent bias in AI. This is a problem across the technology sphere and across society in many ways. It is particularly acute in AI, bearing in mind that the people who developed these models, the people who wrote the code, the people who trained these models in their initial training and their initial learning, the people who did quality control on these models before bringing them to market, all of those were human beings. And like all human beings, every single one of us has inherent biases, right? Sometimes those are repugnant biases like racism, sexism, etc., right? And on even someone who's coding an AI and is well-intentioned in doing it in the best way possible and the most fair and unbiased way possible, they bring some of themselves to that. So whatever their inherent biases are, they bring that to this model. And there's been a lot of research already in the past year about the kinds of biases that are showing up in AI outputs. It's very real. And we hope that over time, those biases will gradually diminish, if not disappear entirely. But they're there and they're real, and it's something we need to be aware of as we make decisions about whether to use AI and how to use AI. We need to be aware that those outputs could have bias in them. So we just need to have some oversight, not just trust them implicitly 100% without any kind of checking. The other real big limitation, again, this has been talked about a lot and researched a lot, is what AI researchers call hallucinations. This is just false stuff, just stuff that's not true at all. People have given a prompt like, write a one-paragraph summary of World War II and then they get something like what we heard in the movie Animal House about how the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor, right? That's not what happened. It was the Japanese who bombed Pearl Harbor. But there still is a tendency within ChatGPT and other LLMs like it to create these things that are just out and out disconnected from reality. These are called hallucinations. And again, we hope that over time, this tendency will diminish or even disappear. But we need to pay attention to it. It is a limitation on how far we can trust the AI if we decide to use it. There also are some risks in using AI. So poor quality, as I mentioned, you can get things that are inaccurate. A lot of the writing that people are getting when they use AI for proposals is stilted. It doesn't flow. It doesn't have that natural flow that a human person who is a good writer can do. You can give a prompt like write a sonnet on the subject of IT services in the style of William Shakespeare, and trust me, you will not get a Shakespearean sonnet out of that. You just won't, right? It's just not the same thing. You can also get outputs that are so customer focused that they ignore the company focused that they ignore the customer. And proposals, we really need to be customer focused because our job is to solve their problems for them, not just tell them how wonderful we think we are, right? So that customer focus is important, and an AI can sometimes miss that. And then the other thing is, if you're giving it prompts like search our proposal database for previous proposals on the same subject, and then write a new proposal for this bid, well, again, this is sort of the garbage in, garbage out problem. You're going to get the same old, same old. Whatever you wrote before, you're going to get the same thing, just in different packaging. You're not necessarily going to get something that's better, although you may get it more quickly. Okay, so that's a risk. Plagiarism is actually a big risk too, because the AIs are also scrubbing data from beyond your company. They're scrubbing data and accessing data from the whole world, the entirety of the internet. And that stuff may find its way into your proposal. And if it's somebody else's intellectual property, the AI won't tag it as such. And you may not know, that that's what's happening. And so you might be inadvertently plagiarizing somebody else's intellectual property. So that's a risk you really need to be aware of. Security issues. Obviously, any IT product has to be aware of security, right? It's not just hacking and data breaches and things like that, but it's also what we often don't think about. We're giving the AI access to our information so they can synthesize part of a proposal for us. What's also happening when they do that is that information is going into the AI's library of data. And that's a library that includes our data, and everybody else's data that's ever used that AI is now in that AI's library. And it has access to that, which means it has access to our stuff, some of which may be proprietary. That's a security issue that we need to be aware of. And we need to make smart decisions about how much access we want to give that AI tool to our stuff. Privacy issues, right? Again, like any kind of technology, we have to be concerned about privacy issues. If the AI has access to information that it shouldn't have about individual people, for example, like your key personnel, you're thinking, well, I need to do a resume and for the key personnel, so I'm going to give the AI access to the information about that person. But if there's something in that set of data about that person that should be privileged information that a normal human being would know to screen out, like their date of birth or their address, right? If that's not required in the resume, it shouldn't be in the resume, and we wouldn't put it in the proposal because it's their personal information. But the AI won't necessarily know that. And so again, it's an issue we just need to be aware of, and we need to develop strategies to deal with it if we are choosing to use AI. And then the other risk that I am pretty well focused on is what I call the efficiency trap, which is that we know that AI can be more efficient than a human at accomplishing certain tasks. And what we often don't think about is whether that's an entirely good thing. So let's talk about that a little bit more. What do we mean by efficiency? In general, when we think of efficiency, we mean the ability to do something more quickly and more cheaply in less time, right? That's kind of what we, a baseline definition of efficiency. So AI can certainly provide that. There's no question. And we typically focus on this aspect of AI as this is a great benefit, and this is what AI does well, and that's what we want. But there's actually, I like to differentiate a little bit and provide some nuance. So there's the ability to do something right, the ability to do something quickly and economically, and the ability to do it well. Those are actually three different things with three different words that describe them. This is important because this nuance is part of your decision-making about whether you want to use AI, and if so, how. It's important to understand these differences and these distinctions. So the efficiency trap, as I call it, is basically the tendency to equate efficiency and effectiveness. And as the previous slide showed you, they're really different things. And we often forget that. And that's the trap if we forget it. As long as we're aware of it, it doesn't need to be a problem. But we have a tendency to equate those two, and that can be problematic. This is a different way of looking at how people think about efficiency. It's how much time does it take? How much does it cost? And obviously, the top right part of this chart, that's the sweet spot, right? On this scale. But this isn't everything we need to think about, right? Because effectiveness, efficiency, costs, revenue, those are different things that we need to think about in different ways and weigh. It's like, we always talk about a cost-benefit analysis. We need to weigh these things and decide what's important and how that impacts the decisions we make. So I'm going to emphasize this point again, because I think it's really important. Efficient is not the same as effective. It's just important to understand that distinction. Doesn't mean that AI shouldn't be used. I'm not suggesting that at all. I'm just suggesting we need to be clear about how we're thinking about this and how we're deciding so that we're making smart decisions. Ethical considerations I highlight. We talked about plagiarism and hallucinations and bias. The potential for harm. Some of what AI is producing now is really hurtful, ugly stuff, and we certainly don't want that. And then there's also the possibility of negative impacts on employees. And if you think about this, there are multiple potential impacts. One is if you're using AI to reduce your costs, you're going to be tempted to reduce your staffing. And so people are going to lose jobs. So that's just one way that using AI can have a negative impact on employees. Again, these are decisions you have to make, business decisions you have to make. Not my job to tell you what to do or not to do. Just be aware that, there's no such thing as a perfect technology that doesn't cost anything to anybody. There are costs, and some of those are monetary costs, but some of those are intangible costs. The unintended consequences of focusing on efficient, a lot of us are trying to push out as many proposals as we can, as quickly as we can. We have a tendency to think that if we bid more, we're going to win more. And that's actually a flawed assumption. And I urge you, if that's the way you're thinking, to rethink that. That is a recommendation I will make. But what happens in that case is you're thinking, well, I have 4 people on my team who work on proposals. And if I implement AI, I can put out 20 proposals in the same time that that my 4 people are taking to do 10 proposals. And so we're going to either decide we don't need all 4 of those people and cut it back to 2, in which case they're going to essentially have the same workload that they had before AI. You haven't helped them at all. Or even worse, you might say, well, we're not only going to cut it down to 2 people, but we're also going to expect them to do 40 proposals in that same time frame, because after all, they've got AI do all the work. And now you're actually increasing their stress and increasing the likelihood of burnout. And those are already problems that are huge issues in the GovCon proposal world. There's a huge amount of turnover, and it's because people are overworked and overstressed. And so, again, this is an awareness piece. There's a temptation. This is part of the efficiency trap. There's a temptation to give more work to fewer people. And instead of making their jobs easier, you're making their jobs harder. So that brings us to, is it right for you? I'm not here to answer that for you. I can't, because that's really specific to your situation, your company's goals, what your capabilities are, what your resources are, et cetera, right? What I have tried to do in this presentation is give you some of the things you ought to be thinking about as you make those decisions. And really, what I strongly urge is you need to educate yourselves, right? This presentation isn't enough information for you to make a decision. I don't think that highly of myself that I'm the be-all and the end-all on the subject of AI. I am not. So, couple of websites here at the top to check out information from OpenAI, which developed ChatGPT. Wikipedia has a pretty good article about it, in my judgment. There's this article from Forbes from last March that I thought was a pretty darn good article just on the subject of intelligence itself. And then a couple of different perspectives. One is what I would call the skeptical perspective. This is from Carl Dixon. He's well-known, highly respected person in the GovCon proposal world. And he wrote an article in which he's basically very dubious about the use of AI in proposals. So he's a skeptic. On the other end of the scale, there are the enthusiastic proponents. Rohirrim is a company that is at the forefront of AI in proposal work. I happen to know their director of training, Rebecca Link, a longtime colleague of mine, and an all-around really good person. I just really like and respect her. She's very sharp, and she's very enthusiastic about the possibilities for AI in proposals. So if you want to talk to someone from that perspective, talk to Rebecca. There are plenty of other people who also are enthusiastic and provide that same perspective, but because I happen to know her, and she's in a position where this is something she's working on every day, that's why I'm recommending her, not to minimize anybody else's potential contributions. And with that, I'm happy to talk about this further. Feel free to contact me directly, and we have some time for questions now.
All right. Thank you so much, David. That was an excellent presentation. As always, we've been fortunate to have you here a couple of times. So 2 things. If you want to share your contact information, please feel free to put it in chat. And people attendees can download the chat. And then in addition, if you have questions, and I'll go through and read some of the questions to David that we have in chat. So please feel free to enter, and I'll go ahead and start. So one of our attendees asked, are you familiar with userogue.com?
I know the name, but I'm not familiar with it, the tool itself, no.
Okay. And yeah, if you didn't hear me prior to the beginning of our session, I will be, or actually more accurately, Lindsay will be sending out the presentation afterward. So give us a little bit of time, but we will be sending this out and you will have David's PowerPoint slides. And how closely is the government checking for chat GPT rating?
So that's a great question and a very pertinent question. We are seeing more and more RFPs that have specific language regarding the use of AI in developing proposals. It started slowly. I think it's picking up steam. And just to be clear, ChatGPT is not the only AI tool that people are using for proposals. And so, they're really looking for anything that looks like it was generated by an AI tool. And so sometimes they're putting in language into the RFP that says, it's almost like a contract clause that you have to validate by submitting this proposal. You validate that you did not use AI in developing your proposal. I think that's swinging the pendulum a little far to one side, because truthfully, using AI to generate a first draft of something is not necessarily a bad thing. But sometimes they are making clear that in the evaluation process, they are looking for signs that your proposal looks too much like somebody else's proposal. And that can be a sign of two things at least. One of those things is that you both hired the same proposal consultant to write the proposal, and that proposal consultant wrote the same proposal for both of you. Now, just so you know, I would never do that. I'm a proposal consultant. I don't do that. I won't write a proposal for more than one customer on a single bid. That's just, I don't work that way. But they're looking for that. But then they're also looking for somebody who just had an AI do it, and another company had an AI do it, and those two proposals end up looking exactly the same. And they're going to disqualify you during the evaluation if they decide that you've done that. Now, of course, that can be subject to protest. This has not been tested, as far as I know, at the GAO level, let alone the COFC level. But it will, before too long, somebody is going to protest because they got dinged for allegedly using AI, and they're going to claim they didn't or whatever. So that is a really, really important issue that is just in the early stages of developing. But my best advice to you is read the RFP carefully and see what it says about that issue, because we are seeing RFPs with specific language about it.
And a couple of comments on that note from Fed Savvy Strategies. It's also very difficult to validate or prove such clauses, so such clauses are more or less worthless.
Yep.
And then another comment is you risk being disqualified, but that means somebody needs to prove it.
Yes, both of those are absolutely true. I totally agree with both of those statements. And really what I'm recommending is, again, as with everything in this presentation, these are things you do need to be mindful of. It's not necessarily a reason not to use AI if that's the decision you make. That's not what I'm here for. But at least be aware that these things might be there, might be issues. And, I'd rather not have somebody say, I'm being disqualified for AI. Whether I used AI or not, I just don't want to have to deal with that issue. Right. So, and I don't really want to win a protest. I want to win the contract award. And I say that a lot. It's like, if we have to protest because something happened in the evaluation, then in my judgment, although the agency may have done something wrong, we've probably also done something wrong. And I just as soon avoid that.
Right. So another question is, one of the biggest challenges this company faces is data privacy, especially considering, and sorry, I lost the question here, so let me find it again. Give me a minute. Moved on me. So this is probably a, while I'm looking this up again, this is probably a silly question, David, but why does the government care about whether our companies use AI?
Part of the reason is the same reason that they care about whether consultants are doing the same proposal for more than one company, because the whole idea of a proposal is that they want to know what your capabilities are and what your solution to their problems is. And so if you have, whether you're using a consultant who somebody else is using or an AI that somebody else is also using, right, then they're not actually getting an accurate representation of what you bring to the table specifically that sets you apart, why they would want to hire you if your proposal reads like somebody else's proposal. Now there's nothing to choose between those two, right? And they have a very vested interest in finding the best possible solution to the requirement. So that's really the fundamental reason, is they just want to have a good opportunity to get the best answer. Now, at the same time, I suspect that the fear within the government contracting shops is that that AI-generated proposals will become a norm, and because this technology is new enough and they're not smart enough about it yet. None of us are really, certainly not me, but none of us are smart enough about this yet, and we don't really understand all the potential ramifications. And so part of this is probably coming from a fear of being caught with their pants down, so to speak, just through the fact that they don't know enough about how this all works. And it may simply be the response to that is to err on the side of caution, which in their minds is, we don't want any AI proposals. I think that's a likely basis for it. You'd have to talk to contracting officers to find out, and I recommend you do that as part of your business development process. Talk to those contracting officers before an RFP comes out. Say, hey, what do you think of this whole AI thing, and what are you guys doing about it and thinking about it? And listen to their answers.
Okay, thank you. And I found the question that I had started asking a couple minutes ago. So this company's biggest challenges we face is data privacy, especially considering that most of the data is government owned. The critical question or crucial question is, how do you ensure the security of the data?
Yeah, that's a great question that I'm probably not the best person to answer. And the reason is because I'm not an expert. I warned you. And I think you're going to need to talk to someone for whom that specific question is their specialty area of expertise. And that might be a data security expert. It might be an attorney who can address the issues of privacy and protection, data protection, etc. There are people out there who are much smarter about that specific issue than I am. I wish I could give you names, but in any case, those are the people you do need to talk to about that.
Yep. Okay. Thank you. Okay, so another question is, unless you're using an enterprise paid version of ChatGPT, all the data that you provide as part of your prompts are available to other ChatGPT users. So if you need to keep the data private, please use an enterprise paid version of ChatGPT. So
yes, that is a very astute comment, and it's absolutely correct. If you're putting your stuff out there using the free version of the tool, your stuff belongs to the tool now, and it will show up in somebody else's proposal at some point.
Okay, thank you. And this is another comment. In a sense, there's no difference than businesses who hire consultants to substitute expertise to write your technical proposal for you because of their expertise and not the bidder. This is not the same as hiring talented proposal professionals who can help you articulate your story. This is someone doing everything for you. This is a reason why we see more orals and demonstrations. Interesting. I didn't know that.
Also a very, very astute comment. Yes. Hey, I'm a proposal consultant. That's my business. And I don't make any bones about what I do. We are experts in proposals, but we're not experts in the subject matter, and we're not experts in your business. So, you know, there is a problem with consultants who are essentially SMEs, who are selling their services to companies to help them develop their proposals because they know the work, they know the project, they know the program, they know the customer, right? And they're selling that knowledge base to you essentially. And one of the things the government's already been cracking down on for years is they want to know who's writing your proposal. And they want to know, is that person also going to work on the project if you win the award, right? And you're going to get dinged if that's not the case. So so that's a challenge. That is less of a challenge for proposal consultants like my team, because we're not SMEs and we're not providing content. We are the folks who are taking content that's generated by others and massaging it into something that's the most effective presentation of it. And that's the difference there. But that's a really astute comment.
Yep. And we have another comment here. Starts out, so a little different but related. This person works in AI ML.
Right.
And what is ML?
Machine learning.
Okay. And given that LLMs have made the field buzzwordy to the point of being nonsense, not speaking to all how useful they are, how do you recommend navigating writing proposals on AI/ML topics for requests that often now are written by people who know very little about the field? That asks incorrect expectations.
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's, you know, it's interesting because in addition to the possibility of using AI to generate your proposal, some of the agencies are asking, you know, putting out RFPs to help them use AI and ML in what they're doing, right? And the answer is the same as the answer for actually any specialized area of expertise that a government customer is asking you to propose on, and that is you need to have someone who knows about it. I'm not that person, and I don't pretend to be, and I would point you away from me if that were the case. But there are people out there that have been working with AI and working with ML and have expertise in those fields. And those are the folks that you should be talking to as you work on developing your proposals about those subjects. It's no different than if you were doing a proposal about construction, right? You're going to need somebody who knows about construction. You're going to need to talk to plumbers and electricians and carpenters and yada, yada, yada. It's exactly the same. It's just technology.
Yep. Well, thank you, David. I believe that I have covered all the questions and comments that people put in chat. If not, of course, you can reach out to David, and also recommend you reaching out to him if you need any type of proposal help. And again, David, very nice of you to share your expertise and time with us.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. I'm delighted I was able to have this conversation with you all. Fantastic questions and comments. I really appreciate that. I'm actually a little smarter now than I was when I started this presentation, thanks to you all. And thanks to Karen and Lindsay for asking me to present. So happy to talk to anyone. Feel free to reach out and contact me. I love to have conversations about any topic, whether it has to do with AI or proposals or the weather or anything else. I'm happy to have a conversation.
Great. Well, thanks again, David. I'm going to now turn it over to Lindsay.
Thank you, Karen. Our Government Contractor Chat Zoom webinar series will be the third Wednesday of each month from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Wednesday, February 21st, we will have Daniel Strauss, partner at Cordatus LLP. Wednesday, March 20th, we will have Marie Jarabak, Vice President of Cost and Pricing Strategy at EOP Consulting. Wednesday, April 17th, we will have Jill Ryan, President and Program and Project Management Consultant at Gladify. These webinars will be added to our events page soon. To register for these webinars, you can scan the QR code on the screen now. Thank you for your time today, and we hope to see you in February.